Prepping means self-reliance. Self-reliance means responsibility. Responsibility means freedom. Let's get right to it. Time is precious. I consider prepping to be just normal human behavior. Every human in all of human history was a prepper, except for the last 70 years or so, where being self-reliant in prepping is seen as being crazy or silly. After all, we live in a society, and society will take care of us, right? In the past 2 years, we've seen pandemic, tyrannical government measures, riots, lockdowns, protests, droughts, floods, and now what looks to be the start of World War III. If you don't have the preparedness mindset by now, just turn me off, go about your day, and keep thinking that your life is society's problem instead of your own. Having a preparedness mindset can go against many spiritualities that suggest living in the present moment, as the future is unknown and doesn't exist yet. All we have is the present moment. But taking steps in the present moment is something that you can do to better your future. Whether it just be investing, getting a life insurance policy just in case, learning some skills or taking classes to better the rest of your life, saving up for something you want in the future. This is prepping. It's not some guy in the woods wearing a gas mask that's portrayed by the general media. People will prepare for all sorts of different scenarios. Personally, I view preparedness as simply being resilient and self-reliant. So it doesn't really matter what happens, you're prepared for everything. I will survive and probably thrive. Doesn't matter really what happens. I'd like to push the stigma from the word preparedness to just being responsible. Whew, hot. If you're prepared for one thing, you're also prepared for anything. So let's say you live in Tornado Alley and you decide to put a tornado shelter in and put a little bit of food and water in there. But then some other event happens, like a riot in your neighborhood or something like that. Well, you have a tornado shelter with some provisions to keep your family safe. If you're prepared for one thing, you're prepared for many things. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. You will notice these are 4 stages, kind of like we have 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. These 4 seasons are natural, part of nature, can't be changed. The same cycle as the prosperity and regression in societies. We've had some really, really good times in recent years. Even now it's pretty good. You can order anything you want off the internet. All your needs are met. Heck, you don't even need a job, and you still keep getting paid. In fact, you might even get paid more to stay home and not work during the past few years. The West is primarily a consumer economy. It doesn't really produce or manufacture anything anymore. But more recently, because all our needs are met, we now have all sorts of strange and screwed up things in society and societal things that only are because the times were so good in recent history that the strong men created. Just take a look at who the people vote for into power in Western countries lately. These people are literally cartoon character memes. Right now we are in late fall or early winter with probably a pretty deep, dark winter ahead. If that's not enough information to get you considering being more responsible and self-reliant, I don't know what will. If you have a preparedness mindset, you're going to want to leave the city as soon as possible, or at least make it a goal. If your safe space is just your front door, consider some better security temporarily until you can find a better location. You'll also want to start with some protection, as you're in close proximity to other humans, and protection would be kind of your first thing to look at. Then you'll want to cover some of the basics that everyone needs to survive, but most don't have, like food, water, shelter, and security. There will only be so much that you can do in the city, so storing some provisions is necessary, as the grid and society and the system brings you all of your food, water, shelter, security, heat, and literally everything. Everyone's dependent on the system now. Topping off your gas tank, having some cash on hand, having some things of value that could be bartered or trade with, that's all good, and just general good life principles as well. Skills are important, and knowledge is something that nobody can ever take away from you. A go bag or bug out bag is important to have as well. You can look into that, or the things you need for the area that you live in. As long as you have kind of a idea of where you're going or what your plan is with your bug out bag. Think about where you live. So where I live, it's minus 50 outside. So that is our worst threat for most of the year. All new houses where I live, nobody has a wood stove or backup heating whatsoever. So it's completely grid reliant. Just a few days without natural gas would cause a lot of people to freeze. If it stayed off for a prolonged period, people may hop in their cars and try to drive south to where it's warmer, possibly. Maybe they make it, maybe they stop, run out of gas on the side of the highway, and that's it. Minus 50, most people don't realize that skin freezes in seconds. If you truly want to be resilient in your life, the end goal should be self-reliance, responsibility, and freedom in some or all forms. Your own water source, your own food production, your own security measures, a strong community who shares your values, your own heating requirements, your own energy requirements, a well-insulated and protective structure, etc. Be self-reliant, not reliant on the system. Distancing yourself from the general public is also very important, although you still want to participate in a small amount in general society, so not too far away. You want to build communities in your immediate vicinity, people who share your same values and are on the same page as you. I might do an entire video on how that is done as well, community building. Strategic relocation, so more coastal and temperate climates are where the population is always the greatest, essentially where it's easy living. I would personally rather deal with this extreme harsh Mother Nature than a whole bunch of unprepared people. People that live in these temperate climates, they don't have much of a threat from Mother Nature, so they don't typically have a preparedness mindset or a deferred gratification mindset. So they're typically unprepared. People that live in the north and have a northern mindset, mostly ingrained somewhere in their DNA, they live very close to nature because nature is harsh and will kill you. If you don't store enough food and firewood for the winter, you will die. Of course, as long as the fragile systems of society keep running, this is of no concern to anyone. Finding the right life partner and friends is also very important. Building with people or someone that shares your same values is necessary, and you should all be on the same relative page. For prepping supplies like trinkets and doodads, I don't have a lot of that. Like the ultimate all-in-one knife or something like that. I'll have 50 knives. You know, I have a boning knife, skinning knife, filleting, cleaver, paring, pocket knife, different construction knives. I also have, 8 to 10 ways to split firewood, because that's extremely important where I live. I don't actually personally even have a flint fire start or a bow drill or one of those survivalist methods. I have about over 100 Bic lighters and little propane tanks with torch ends. Each little propane tank that I have will last me lighting fires daily, sometimes multiple times a day, well over a year. One little tank. I mean, let's get real with everything. 2 is 1, 1 is none. I like to have things I just use daily in my everyday life, such as shovels, pitchforks, garden seeds, pots, compost piles, building material, tractor attachments, fuel, firewood, etc. Very similar to how humans lived in all of human history, except for the last 50 years or so. I'm not a bushcrafter type anymore. When I was a kid, I loved making forts in the bush out of sticks and grass and everything. But let's get serious about the current situations. It's kind of a fantasy that you're going to go out in the forest with a a knife and a ball of string and build yourself a survival shelter. No, it's too cold here to do any of that. Plus, we have all this technology and all these resources already. So if things got really bad in the world or something crazy happened, guess what we've got? We've got all these buildings that have vinyl siding, insulation, straight lumber, screws, nails, asphalt shingles. Instead of building a, lean-to stick and grass thing, you can make yourself a pretty decent insulated log cabin with a high-efficient wood stove or something like that. I'm kind of a realist when it comes to preparedness. So being portable versus permanent. So I would suggest bugging in or staying put at almost all costs. So that's get your setup and stay put. But if you do have to be mobile, make sure you're lightweight and quick to get to where you're planning on going. But for a permanent location, like you want to store a lot of firewood, nice thick insulated walls, heavy things that you can't do if you're just going to be a nomad mobile unit, right? I prefer bugging in at all costs. Of course, if you're in an apartment, in a townhouse or an apartment in the city, bugging in isn't going to be a long-term option because you're reliant on all of society's systems in the city. So I would suggest being self-reliant, picking your spot, and staying put. Just things like the government taxing fuel 8 different ways and the climate narratives being pushed by, seems like everyone, driving is almost going to be a luxury and a thing of the past. So if you go too far away from your employment or wherever, you are not going to be able to drive. Or if you have a cabin in the woods 8 hours away, you're not going to be able to afford to drive there. Fuel is going to get much more expensive. Do it now. If you think you're just going to wait till the very last minute to get everything set up, you are SOL. You do things ahead of time. That's why it's called preparedness and not reaction. Establishing good garden soil takes years and years to work out the kinks. This greenhouse took me way longer than I figured to build it, and then all these little kinks to work out. It's going to take a few years to kind of get everything perfected, and it's like that I found with everything. Everything takes me way longer. There's all these pitfalls in the way until you work out a system. It takes a long time to get set up, so the best time to plant an apple tree was 10 years ago. The next best time is now. Longevity. Instead of putting asphalt shingles that they say are going to last 50 years but only last 15 to 20, put a 100-year tin roof on it, on your structures, so you don't have to re-roof. You always have a waterproof over your shelter. Even with just the inevitable super high inflation that we're going into and you're going to have to deal with, you will save on re-roofs. So if all your friends are saving money by putting asphalt on their house, in 15 to 20 years, they're going to have to, instead of it being $5,000, it might be $50,000 in 20 years at this rate that we're going. Buy tools and items that last a long time and learn how to take care of them. I know it's a throwaway society, but resilience is treasuring and looking after things that have good value. Much of this is just good life lessons in general, not preparedness. Do things now when you're young, and it makes things easier for you in the future when you get old. Build the big projects with your body when you're young and have a good working body. Put the infrastructure in that's going to help you when you get older. Sun Tzu, The Art of War, said, "Sweat now so you don't bleed later." That's one of my favorite preparedness quotes. Storing things of value. So value's intrinsic and subjective. Think about where you live. So where I live, there's lots of open space, and it's a grain type commodity agriculture. Because of this, we can also do eggs, dairy, and meat. But fruit and vegetables is not happening for 8 months of the year. Here, it's all imported. So I like to store things that are not local to me. So coffee, rice, sugar, and things of that nature. So you can think about your geographical location and what you need. If you live on an island somewhere and can grow fruits and vegetables, but you have no grains, you probably want to get some grains. Helping others. So every personally responsible person, aka prepper, reduces their dependency on society. So if there's a food or a medical situation or anything goes wrong in the world, you won't be a burden on society. You can save lives by not being a burden, and any help that's there can be passed along to the unprepared people. Unfortunately, though, if you're responsible in society, you will get left out of most government programs, free handouts, and benefits, as society always rewards the irresponsible and the unprepared. Some preppers forget to prepare for the unlikely event that society will continue on and everything will be peachy, nobody has to work, and you can order all your stuff off of Amazon. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen or how long things are going to take, even if they say they know what's going to happen. Be careful of confirmation bias on anything that you watch on either end of any spectrum. Try to always get alternative views. Diversifying is a great idea as well. Well, I hope you're enjoying my content. What I think I offer that is really valuable is I'll try to tell it kind of like it is. I have no political side. I don't have any allegiances, like not at all anymore. I really liked fully understanding all of these systems and how they work so that I can make logical decisions in my own life for what I think is going to happen and what's the right route to take in my own life. There's an up and a down, a left and a right and a wrong, human basic psychology. There's fundamental laws of nature, fundamental laws of economics, and I have zero opinions or attachments to all this. I just want to know what's right and what's wrong, what is correct, and what to do about it. Being free, aka responsible, is my personal highest virtue. Here's some motivation. If you don't think that there's time, there's always time. Every day that you wait, there's less time, but there seems to always be time. There's a difference between imminent and inevitable. This is likely going to continue to be a slow burn, like the last decade. Just a slow, painful burn. Just start working towards it every day. Do something and see how far you get. Your future self will thank you. Like, subscribe, share. Let me know what you thought in the comments. I appreciate all your input. You guys take care and stay prepared.